All right, everyone. So it is 5 p.m. on the dot, 5:01 p.m. I'm running a smidge late here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Please remember to mute yourself whenever you are not speaking. All slides and links referenced in this webinar will be sent out along with the recording and PowerPoint presentation in the monthly edition of the LCPD To Go newsletter. They will also be available on Spoke. Welcome to the November Y Series webinar, Exploring Rubrics as a Teaching Tool. In this Y session, we will discuss the types of rubrics Westcliff University uses and meaning behind each dimension. We will explore what it means to communicate expectations to students through this tool and how rubrics impact the practice of teaching. But first, let me introduce today's facilitator, Dr. Jeanette Flores, Dean of the Light Center. Dr. Flores holds a Doctor of Education in Higher Education Leadership degree, a Master of Business Administration degree, a Bachelor of Science in Behavioral Science degree, and an Associate of Arts in Liberal Arts and Science degree. A former program chair for the College of Business at Westcliff University and the inaugural Faculty Senate President. Should say a former former dean of the College of Business of Westcliff University. My apologies. And the inaugural Faculty Senate President, Dr. Flores, is now the Dean of the Light Center. Dr. Flores has also served as an adjunct faculty member and has taught classes in business administration, liberal studies, and education at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. And Dr. Flores, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Broning. I appreciate it. And good evening to everyone. It's so great to see so many wonderful, familiar faces and to see some new ones as well. I will tell you that if you were here for this morning's session, first of all, you're back from war. Fantastic. I am extremely under the weather. For your sake, I'm going to keep my video off. It is an ugly, ugly sight at the moment. So let's see if we can get through today. Medication seems to be working. So it is just been, I think just something hit this household, something hit the city really. So please forgive me. Normally I'm video on. I love to interact with everyone. Today I'm just gonna hang in there. So thanks again. Welcome to the Light Center Y Series, Exploring Rubrics as a Teaching Tool. And today we're really just going to be exploring rubrics, which is an explicit set of criteria used for assessing a particular type of work, performance, assignment. And you know, it's something about rubrics. They really do offer more than just a single A, B, C, D, F grade ever will. And it helps us, faculty, grade a lot more objectively. So if you've ever had your students ask, hey, why did you grade me that way? Or you never told us we'd be graded on grammar, right? And if you ever struggle to come up with a response, well, struggle no more, because rubrics speak loudly, they speak clearly, and they offer many benefits, all of which is the focus of our time today. So today we are going to cover rubric elements and the power of rubrics. So please note, while there are three general categories of rubrics, there's analytic, holistic, and single point. We're really just going to cover analytic rubrics today, and that's the type of rubrics that you see in your GAP at Westcliff University. Now, here's what we're not going to cover today. We're not going to cover anyone's opinion on how the Westcliff rubrics are or are not working or how to improve them. This is not the forum for that type of discussion. Curriculum Champions does, however, welcome your feedback on how to clarify rubrics anytime. curriculumchamps@westcliff.edu. Folks, do shoot them an email. They are always welcome of your feedback. Now, before we get started, I also want to mention that little magic fairy dust that makes this session come alive, which is your participation. This session can only be what it was developed to be by your contribution of positive energy. I'm already feeling it over here, guys. I already feel a lot better. Look at this. The sickness is going away just by your positive energy, your engagement in the polls, your engagement in the short breakout room discussions and activity, and your sincere interest in exploring rubrics in a new way by using cookies as our focus, which is going to be in part 2 of the House series next week. Have I intrigued you yet? Fantastic. Let's go ahead and move along then. And we're going to go ahead and start with rubrics at a matrix. And this is not the type of matrix I'm talking about. Sorry, Keanu. But we are talking about this type of matrix. And it seems that there's a lot going on in here, doesn't it? It almost makes you want to break down and just use a checklist of some sort in order to assess student work. The thing is, team, that checklists offer a yes/no format in relation to student demonstration of specific criteria. But rubrics, these allow faculty to assess on more of a continuum. And if you think about it like a light switch, with checklists, the light is either on or off, yes or no, present or not present, met or not met, observed or not observed, right? But that type of response to student work, is that really the best way to get them to understand how they can improve? I want you to think about that for a second. So while at first glance, it may seem like there's a lot going on, it just becomes a lot easier to read when you break it down into its three main components. Let's take a look at the first component. The first one is scales and scoring. Now, scales and numeric scores associated with each allow faculty to indicate the degree or the frequency of those behaviors, those skills, those strategies that are displayed by our learners. So if we think about that light switch analogy from earlier, if you think about this dimmer switch here, this rating scale I just showed you a moment ago, it's like a dimmer switch. It provides for a range of performance levels, right? Do you see how that's working out here? Fantastic. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the next component. The next rubric component is criteria or dimensions, as some call them. I like to call them dimensions. Sounds really cool. Sounds smart. Impress your friends. Which identify that trait, that feature, that dimension, which is to be measured, right? So each assignment is going to determine the number of criteria to be scored. And criteria, I'm going to say that again, these are derived directly from our assignments, or to put it more clearly, from the expectations of what a quality assignment submission looks like, right? So want to see what I mean? Let's take a look at the Westcliff discussion question rubric just a little closer. Now, I've been using this discussion question rubric as the sample so far, but I want to take the criteria, right? So look where the arrow is pointing and just kind of zoom in here. Now, here you see three criteria or dimensions of the discussion question rubric. Now, as you can see here, the three main expectations of a quality DQ is a fabulous response to the discussion post prompt, an equally amazing response to peers, and a little something our world needs more of besides love, called accountability. Or in this case, did they post on time? Right? So the best rubrics include criteria which are appropriate, and they speak directly to purpose, and they describe the criteria across a continuum of performance levels, which leads us to our last rubric component, performance descriptors. So if we look at performance descriptors using the discussion question rubric, once again, I've only included the criteria depth of initial post, which I'll show you in just one second. But really what we're looking at is, can you differentiate between exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, unsatisfactory, or in our case, sometimes, unfortunately, no submission? And this is where I think where faculty sometimes get a little hung up when they're using it, because they start to go, there's a lot of text in here. Yes, but look at how it's allowing you to grade a little bit more appropriately, select the score more appropriate to the level of performance of student work. So let's take a look at performance descriptors a little bit more. And again, I'm using the discussion question rubric. I've included the depth of initial post. I'm zooming in here, the scales and scoring for reference. Do you notice how the performance descriptor is clear on what is and what is not exemplary when it comes to initial post response? You see? In fact, if you take a look at the rubric as a whole, I'm just going to kind of zoom out again. And what I'd like you to do is take a screenshot of this slide right now. I'll give you a second to find your screenshot tool on your computer, because I'm about to break you up into breakout rooms. And within your group, you're going to review the screenshot and you're going to discuss what distinguishes exemplary from proficient, needs improvement from unsatisfactory. I've told you that it does, but what is it? What is it about these descriptors that differentiate them all? So I'm going to use breakout rooms. Everyone got that screenshot? Wonderful. And let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and assign, oh goodness, I hope I can, I was trying to assign manually, Dr. Broding, because last time I remember I had to leave some people in the main room, but that's just not working out for me right now. So I'm gonna do,
Do you want me to do it?
would you please?
Sure.
Would you please? It's not, yeah. I see the option, but it's not being kind to me.
Just one sec here.
And as Dr. Broding is doing this, this might be a really good time to just take a quick peek. Wonderful. Looks like she's got those rooms up and running. So please hop on into those rooms and discuss with your peers what distinguishes exemplary from proficient and needs improvement from unsatisfactory according to this rubric. See you in 3 minutes.
And if you were not assigned a room, that means you're going to be in the main room and going to be discussing it here for recording purposes. Would anyone like to get started?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Professor Nelson, we
Okay.
can.
Okay, good. I'm sorry, I'm driving. So I would say when we think about exemplary versus proficient, we exemplary means everything is spot on. So there are minimal to no corrections in an assignment. So that's like, it's glaring, just perfection. Proficient is still emerging. There's a lot of emergence. It's meeting the mark, but there's some things that we want to hone in on so that it can get to that level of exemplary. And when we're thinking about this in general terms.
Can I jump in there? Okay. Here's, and I fully agree with what Professor Nelson said. I'd like to add this too as well, that I like this because it helps my students and I stay on the same page in terms of expectations. And once they see me doing this more often, 1 or 2 times, they're ready for the next one. They're ready to understand what's expected of themselves in terms of what they need to write about, what they need to list. So, for example, like I love teaching. My favorite course of all time is CAP 400, the undergraduate capstone course for the business school. And for example, if we're doing a SWOT analysis, and they need to talk about what a SWOT analysis is, and if all they answer is a SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and trends, that's going to get them somewhere in the unsatisfactory range right there, because all they did really is just offer some insight. But if they give me some examples of what strengths might be, and then weaknesses, and then opportunities, then they're working their way into needs improvement. If they give me all the examples, but without some reasoning behind it, like for example, if they say, strengths, here are some examples of strengths, here are some examples of weaknesses, but they don't give any kind of reasoning behind why that's a strength or why that's a weakness or why that's an opportunity, then they're going to find themselves in the proficient scale. And then if they give me everything, like the standard, I like to say, the tops in class honors response, where they're stating examples, reasoning behind it, as well as some definitions for what that particular construct is, in this case, SWOT analysis, then they're going to find themselves in the exemplary category.
And might we also add though citations as well for the exemplary, because I think a lot of students can hit things on the mark, but then we're not properly citing.
Yeah, I tell students, if you didn't make any citations or you didn't back up your claims, then you weakened your argument. But for me with exemplary, it's usually that student who blows you away with the paper. They make some connection that you're like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Like I had a student making me reflect on what my thinking was. That's when I know it's exemplary. For example, I had a student, they were writing papers on a movie, and one student argued that Forrest Gump was autistic. I was like, I didn't even consider him. I considered him mild and moderate. And they gave some, I'm like, you know what? I can see this. Like you really thought this through. So when they're giving you those like extensions that go above me, because proficient, you've met all the requirements, right? You had a clean argument, you're there. But that exemplary just blows you away and has you reflecting on your own thoughts and ideas. But going back to if there's no citations, then it's just, I told them you can't go to court and argue a case saying you're guilty if you have no evidence or proof. It's going to fall apart right then and there.
That's good too. And I like to throw in word count as well. I know we have all kinds of, preconceived ideas about word count. What's word count without quality? But I like to see some copious, responses. I like to see those 300, 350 word responses, because inside there is going to be some good stuff that is going to, move the needle, so to speak, from proficient to exemplary. Of course, with all the in-text citations up to speed, and the peer-reviewed sources listed at the bottom and so on. But I like a good word count.
Yeah, I think last session I told students they couldn't. I gave them I constrained them to like 750 to 1,000 words. They're like, oh, you gave it too little. I'm like, with this topic, you just got to get to the point, because I don't want you talking in circles and this wishy-washy and you're repeating yourself and just creating or putting those excessively long quotes. It's like, get to your point immediately. Explain, and the quote is just backing you up. But this whole idea of talking on and on and on and on, and we're not getting anywhere. I'm like, you can say what you have to say in 2 pages.
I once had a prof at the doctoral level that would say, hey, if you can tell me what you were just telling me with 10% less words, that's going to get you exemplary category. So yeah, maybe at the undergrad level, a more copious response is better, but I'm with you. I think sometimes they can ramble on until the point where, they're just they're circling the question. So
and
that's
there's
a good
room
point.
for error, right? And then you start having
exactly
that you're like, some of the sentence structures are so awkward that you don't even have to correct them.
Right. Well, that's where I like to find some room for, improvement in the writing skills under accountability or grammar and spelling, or, something like that. I think at least 30% of that response should reflect some kind of writing skills, mechanical writing skills.
Yeah.
Category.
And then the opposite.
Excellent.
And unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory, I tell students, you're usually unsatisfactory when I could tell you wrote that paper 1 hour before it was due and you just kind of jotted some quick notes. the errors, I'm like, you didn't even try to put it in Google Docs or Word. You could have had half those errors corrected for you.
I love the date and timestamp, process, looking to see when they actually posted. That really speaks to the, the caliber and quality of the content as well, to your point, because if they're waiting to the last second, you're going to get, some sloppy work.
Yeah, very few students are that intuitive with their own writing that they can just really, there are some students who can. I personally am not one of those people. So it's a week's worth of process, but usually the unsatisfactory, it was like, you didn't reread the response, the question that was being asked of you, you didn't look at the rubric again, needs improvement. You could just tell there's just, maybe they misunderstood what was being asked of them. But unsatisfactory, it's really, you really have to almost do nothing to have
following the directions. A lot of students, I think, can create a prompt in their head. Now you've gone over some things and saying this is what they're asking of you, but did you follow what was being asked in there so that you can move to those proficient and exemplary levels? Because if you're just, I don't know, off the wall, you're making a great point for whatever you're talking about, but that wasn't what the assignment was about.
Yeah.
Excellent discussion here. And welcome back, everyone. What I'm really loving about the main room discussion is I heard a lot about transparency. Heard a lot about consistency and relevancy. And it's really funny because that is specifically where we're headed when it comes to characteristics of fantastic rubrics. So well done. Thank you for participating in this discussion. And what I'd like to just go ahead and do is, not that. What happened? here we go ahead and do is, first of all, commend you on an excellent discussion, remind you that we've got these 3 components: skill and scoring, criterion, dimension, and performance descriptors, and then hop right on into our characteristics. Again, I heard a lot about transparency, relevancy, and consistency. It's not enough to just build the scoring matrix and call it a day, is it? Right? And that's what we're talking about in this main room. So what should these tools like rubrics aspire to be in order to be useful? And it can really just be summed up in these 3 words, which is transparent, relevant, consistent. When you're building and even using a rubric, one has to ask, are these rubrics analytic rather than holistic, so that the results can actually indicate areas for improvement, right? That's the whole idea. Are the expectations public? Are they shared with students? That's the transparency, right? Are they clear? Is there consistency in rubrics over time and across raters? And hint, folks, this is why we do grading calibration activities at Westcliff University. That's consistency. And finally, are the standards realistic when we are trying to establish room for growth? So say, for example, if 100% of your students are doing fantastic and receiving all excellent marks all of the time, then it doesn't really give the student anywhere to go, right? So that's relevancy. And so what I'd like to go ahead and do is break you all out into rooms for 3 minutes. Dr. Broning, I'll probably need your help for that with that one once again. And just kind of consider this question. When you think of transparency, relevancy, and consistency, which one of these 3 categories is the most salient of issues? And team, for this one, there is no right answer. This is just the time to reflect on your experiences using the rubrics provided in your courses and thinking about these 3 characteristics and providing your opinion. So let's go ahead and take about 3 to 5 minutes to do that. Which one of these 3 categories, or these 3 characteristics, I should say, is the most salient issue? I'll see you soon.
I've opened up the rooms, and the group that does not have a room assigned to them, please remain in the breakout room for recording purposes.
May I start the discussion? I have to say consistency is king.
Yeah.
For me, I take great pains to keep a level playing field in my classroom. And I, ever since I've been teaching, that's just been so preeminent with me. I have to make sure that everybody gets treated the same way in terms of the assignment criteria. I can't find myself being inconsistent in grading because I'm prejudging someone, or I'm expecting something more from some student that may or may not be able to deliver, or vice versa. And so for me, consistency across the board with my comments, with my feedback, with my ratings, with my grading process has to be fair to every student.
I agree. I think I told one class I don't look at their names, and they got upset. I'm like, but why do I need to look at? First of all, I don't have the time to worry about who's writing what. I need to just focus on the content. And I think in the beginning, it's like, all right, I have that. It takes long. It's like grade 1 paper, grade number 2, 3, 4, and then it's like, wait, I didn't grade this that way. Go back and make sure I'm consistently adding credit and removing credit the same way, because even at the college level, we still be like, what did you get? What did you get marked off? What happens here? So consistency is big. But even in the student writing too, some of them are inconsistent. And I tell students, you want some students expect that because they completed the assignment, that's sufficient. And I'm like, it's beyond that. There's more to the consistency. And they don't see that you're consistently grading a certain way. And some students have a hard time understanding if the argument's already weak, if they don't have, if there's no textual support or any references. I don't like going back to that. But yeah, from my side, being consistent, making sure the rubric is consistent with the assignment and what we're asking. So if, like, for example, it says 4 citations, but we told him 3, need to adjust accordingly. But yeah, consistency, I think, is more prevalent.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with consistency and relevancy kind of creeps underneath that. It's consistency first, but relevant that again they stay to the topic or they're paying attention to what we're doing. But consistency is also making sure that the information that we are delivering and the information that they are working on is there as well. So it's kind of like a checks and balance system, right? You've explained the directions, you've put forth what they need to do, they've attempted, and if they make those, you go through and you grade accordingly. But if there's something that you've noticed that is not being hit consistently as you move through the process or working through the different assignments for the students, then you have to re-examine that. Was there something in the way that the assignment was written or the way that you explained? And that's where you can have a little bit of gray or some discussion with students or just in general make a share, hey, you know what, I found this something maybe we need to teach back to or clarify.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say last session, I wasn't strict with the guidelines of discussion questions, for example. So this session, to be clear, it's like you must use the text, one other reference. When you post, you have to have at least one in-text citation, being that clear, because I had to explain to them the way you write your discussion questions translates the way you write your papers, right? I'm like, think of it as a really long discussion question, which your papers are. So forcing that consistency, I think helped. Well, we're going to find out this session because luckily I had the same students twice, so we'll see. But being very, like you said, the instructions being very explicit, there's no guessing. One text has to be the class text, one other reference, do this, do that. Then goes back into the word count, making sure I'm like, it's not all quotes and there's actually some substance, and then they can understand. So just constantly reflecting to make sure we're consistent.
Yeah. You know what I noticed too is, to your great points, a lot of my students will miss an ethics component of a particular writing assignment. And if I see that trend happening, if I see that pattern occurring, especially if I'm teaching the course again, I'm highlighting that area so that they don't miss it in this class. And I'm bringing that up in the previous class so that, they understand that if there's a component that's, not well, listed in a particular prompt and they miss it, that could be a big chunk of their content grade. So going over the assignments, kind of like a tutorial review before the PA1 or the CLA1 or CLA2 is something that allows me to help those students be consistent with their response to that writing assignment. And then they'll know I'm grading for that. I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
Right, but the clarity is important. The clarity, if the clarity is not in the prompt or in the assignment, and we can't always infer that students are going to be able to make that assumption. That's when it falls back to comments that we give in terms of how the curriculum is written or how we're doing that or what we absorb that, but we learn together. So I think that's important because I think at the same time when you are feeding back and you're looking at things and something was not crystallized and the students are making those good faith efforts to do turn it in on time, write the strong paper, do the citation. We have to be able to say, okay, offer some grace because those things are there. So it's a balancing act.
Yeah, I do find myself this session having more activities more related to those CLA and PAs because there's always one student who you're thinking, wow, I didn't even think you would think that so far outside of what I asked. But then like, you're right, the directions being clear. So modeling that, I think even the last class, I created time so the students can outline. We did some practice discussions and then create your outline. So they understand that because some students still don't understand. You need a conclusion, you need an intro, you need these pieces. So, okay, what's your thesis? That's your main argument. Find the points. I even made them look for the resources. Some students did it more thorough than others, but I gave you the opportunity to ask the questions 5 minutes before class. I went to single breakout rooms. I think that's helpful too. Popped in and really asked because if they're not clear, so we're going to find out with all these activities, giving opportunity to ask questions and going through it, will it support their writing going forward? Because some students get it, they understand you, it's like they're in your head, and others completely miss what you're asking them.
Great points, Professor Joyce. And this is the second time I've heard you touch upon metacognitive development. And I want you to keep that in mind with some of the comments that you've made and shared with us, the experiences you've shared, because that's actually going to come up in this session and how rubrics can actually foster some of that metacognitive development. So I want you to keep that in mind. Don't forget that one, okay? Excellent. Great discussion, main room. Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited about this discussion. I'm excited about what I've been hearing. And I'm hoping you've had a moment to just kind of warm up with discussions, because I'd love to kind of engage. I don't know why I keep going backwards. There we go. Engage in a little pop quiz. Remember those components of rubrics? Let's go ahead and test your recall of the rubric components that I covered in the beginning of this session. If you've never taken a poll with Zoom, maybe you're new to Westcliff University, just know that I can't see who selected what. So there is no judgment here, okay? So the very first poll is going to ask you to select the best response that matches the highlighted section. So I'm going to launch this now, and I'm going to show you the highlighted section. Select the best response that matches that. What is that? Excellent. We've got 8 responses in, 10 responses in. Okay, it looks like we've got everyone's response. Fantastic. Okay, so it's a split. Some people are saying criteria. Some people are saying performance descriptors. What is it, folks? Criteria. Okay, fantastic. So let's go ahead and move on to our next poll. Stop sharing that one. All right, so our next one is the same thing. I'm going to show you a highlighted section, and I'd like you to select the best response that matches that highlighted section. What is that? Let's go. Most have responded, waiting for just one more. Okay, they got a little shy. Let's go ahead and share those results. So we've got some say scales and scoring, some say performance descriptors. What was it, everyone? Scales and scoring. Fantastic. Okay, poll 3. I'm going to show you a highlighted section. So what is that? Excellent. Okay, easy peasy, right? Performance descriptors for the win, right? So they are describing the performance in each little box there. Let me go ahead and stop that one. Okay, well done, team. You've got a handle on the 3 components of rubrics. So let's see how you can harness the power of these components and rubrics as a whole, using them to your advantage as a faculty member and showing students how they can actually use rubrics to their advantage. So the power behind the use of rubrics in the classroom, the benefits for you, the benefits for your students. I've mentioned some so far. You've mentioned some in your discussions. I've no doubt you can come up with many, many more. In fact, at this time, I'm going to break you up into small breakout rooms again. Actually, Dr. Broding's going to help me with that, where you're going to have 3 minutes to discuss the following questions. What are the benefits of using rubrics in the classroom? But here's the thing. Before I break you out into those breakout rooms, I'd like you to click the link that Dr. Broding just placed into the chat box, and you can see that it'll lead you to Jamboard. You're going to go ahead and pull a Post-it note and type in your contribution as you discuss your contributions with your group. And we're just going to create this nice big Jamboard responding to what are the benefits of using rubrics in the classroom. Now, in your groups, you can select either one person to contribute each benefit, or maybe each person in the group can contribute their responses as they share them. It's really your choice, okay? So please click that link now that's in the chat box, and then navigate yourselves to the breakout room once you see Dr. Broding has opened them. And you will have 3 minutes, we'll give it 3 to 5 minutes, we'll say, to do this. And I'll see you real soon.
Just real quick, there's 2 arrows at the top, one to the right, one to the left on the Jamboard. If you click to the right, it'll take you to a slide that does not have responses from this morning, and that'll be for this session.
Due to the fact that I'm driving, if one of my group participants could just do that. I want to just be
We
safe.
got you.
I would be- Okay, benefits of rubrics. Consistency.
Absolutely. I love that students know what is expected of them with every assignment. No surprises.
Transparency.
It establishes benchmarks for improvement the next time. So maybe you didn't make it the first round. The next time you attempt an assignment, you're able to have a goal to meet.
What else? Yeah, self-improvement.
Yeah, we can call that students are able to improve their assignments based on their scores.
Let's see, consistency, transparency establishes benchmarks for self-improvement.
I like that objectivity or objective. You know, there's a method to our madness, so to speak. We're not just, grabbing numbers and ratings out of the sky. There's method to our madness, to our process.
That's why I loved grading math problems. It's right, it's wrong. You did it, you didn't do it. Can't accuse me of being favorite with someone. Nope. It is or isn't. All right, let's see. I'm typing everything we're saying, by the way, if that's to make it easier. What else? Objectivity. It provides the students with guidelines when they're writing their paper.
Yeah, and I like measurement too. I think, someone might not be exemplary, but they could be on the border of proficient and exemplary. So, like a 32 or 36, something like that. So the measurement process could really help students gauge their improvement.
Yeah, so if they didn't do in-text citations, next time they know to add that. If they didn't do APA correctly, they know how to fix that.
Exactly.
Elements of place to focus on.
I think it also, as when we reflect about assessment and measuring, there comes a point also when we get feedback at this is going outside. But if you notice that students are not getting certain things, it's a way to maybe recalibrate to how we design what we're doing in our assignments or the work that we're doing. It's a measuring tool for what they're absorbing and learning and what maybe needs to be added or taken out.
So it's feedback for both of us, giving and receiving. Yeah, because if everyone gets 0, like that's why I tell students, please don't plagiarize, please give me answers, because if I'm teaching something and 90 of you out of 100 don't know what I'm talking about, I have to change something. But I do, and you can also ask questions for checking for understanding too. Like you
Yeah.
have,
And I want to make those changes legitimately, not based on, something false.
yeah, like yesterday, kids are confused. I'm like, be honest, did you even read the chapter before you got here? No, well,
Right.
there's our answer. At least they're honest. So I love creating the environment where like, yeah, I didn't read anything. So there we go. So it's a struggle because you didn't even do the assignment or because the assignment was actually difficult.
I like the one that says reduces bias because, there's researcher bias, there's grading bias, there's cognitive biases involved in the process. Even though we're being as objective as possible, we're still going to have our biases, and those the rubrics help us to reduce that or at least mitigate it, and perhaps even eliminate it if we can.
Yeah. And it helps, right? If students are in multiple classes using the same rubric, at some point they're going to get it. The idea of how to use it. At the very minimum, the APA and the in-text citation references should be at least the perfect, right? And then going from there, they can kind of gauge. What else? Benefits of using rubrics in the classroom. Right, guidelines, measurements. Let's see.
I don't see this here, but maybe it could fall into consistency as well. That if just a handful, over exaggeration to make my point, if just a handful of professors are using objective rubrics in their classes, and a student goes into a class where a professor isn't using rubrics, that's going to be a culture shock for that student, and they're going to be like, well, my previous professors, they did this or they did that, or they didn't do this or they didn't do that. And why are you doing it this way? So consistency along the linear progression of their degree plan with all their professors is huge.
So like cross-curricular consistency. Yeah, it's not like APA formatting's changing class to class. It should be pretty consistent. Grammar should still make sense in all across all.
Beautiful discussion once again, and fantastic Jamboard, everyone. These are looking great, great thoughts here. And welcome back, everyone. We're going to hop right back into our discussion. You had the opportunity to discuss the benefits of using rubrics in the classroom. So let's go ahead and pull all of those ideas together. When it comes to rubrics, really, there's two categories of benefactors, two main categories of benefactors, and you can consider them as faculty and you can consider the benefactors as a student. So let's go ahead and hit up the faculty first. When we're thinking about rubrics and how beneficial they are to our faculty, I'm going to go back to what I heard in our discussion, which was efficiency and consistency. Let's think about the number of papers that we need to grade in a short amount of time, right? The idea behind using rubrics is to take the guesswork out of grading. It's no longer sitting down and going, okay, what do I need to look for or focus on? But rather, hey, with this rubric, I already know what to look for. What do I need to focus on? I know it. What does high performance look like? I know it, right? Because the rubric clarifies. Less guesswork means more time back in your pocket, which means more time to move on to other more important things in life, like coffee or that audiobook you keep meaning to listen to, whatever floats your boat. Either way, rubrics are going to help you plow through those papers. And what's more, consistent grading is key to helping students understand where they are across the board over time, shows them what they need to do to progress throughout a course. And many of you have mentioned that at least one time. Look at that second bullet point there, Professor Joyce, that one's for you. Cultivating students' metacognitive skills. And this one, team, this is a really big one. So I'm going to dedicate a moment to this area, to this idea of metacognitive development. Now, metacognition is essentially reflection on the micro level, right? This awareness of our own thought process as we complete them, self-evaluation, that's not only about making progress, but building that confidence and that independent thinking. That's what we're really going for here, right? With our students, metacognitive reflection takes thinking process to the next level, because it's not concerned with the assessment. It's not concerned with ABCDF. It's concerned with self-improvement. So at their very best, rubrics can encourage learners to think critically about their work, about their scores, right? So if you've ever heard students talk about faculty giving a grade on their work as opposed to having earned their grade, I can bet that if I were to ask you, more than half of you would raise your hand and say, yep, heard it, right? I'm willing to bet there's probably a lot more of us than less. And the thing is that those words have power and meaning, right? So these word choices by our students, oh, I got the grade, faculty gave me the grade, right? Students, they're saying that they don't really feel involved in that assessment process. They feel like grading is being done to them rather than with them or by them. So whether they're accurate in these thoughts is another discussion for another session. But the thing is, having that clear rubrics lets students know what they can do. It lets them in on that decision-making process. So when they better understand the criteria of each assignment, they can then look at their assignments with the critical eye of a teacher. They can fix their past mistakes and fix the current ones before they even submit it to you, right? The metacognition or awareness of one's own learning strategies, that can be a result from being familiar with the rubrics. That can produce that insightful learner that we're all aiming for in our classrooms in the long term, and of course, less frustrated students in the short term when you provide their grades. So, Professor Joyce, I totally thought of you as you were, going through and giving your examples, because yes, that is a huge, huge power behind this rubric use. So moving on back to our benefits, the last one is to gather useful direct data about student learning, which is helpful, of course, at both the classroom level for our faculty, but also at the administrative level too, right? Overall, how are our students doing? And then, of course, finally, improving student learning, because at the end of the day, we just want our students to do well, and we want to provide them with that snapshot of where they are and where they can be with the specific actions assigned. And that's quite the gold nugget that you'll be able to hand to them if you can do that. Now, moving on to the student, rubrics, of course, help our students by applying faculty expectations to their work, right? Critiquing their own work more effectively, especially if you review the rubrics with them against their own work before they even submit that to you. Have you ever tried this as a classroom activity? Try it if you haven't. Give them the rubric, which they already have access to in their syllabus, by the way, and ask them to evaluate their work before they submit it. See what kinds of discussions and activity and improvement takes place upon submittal. Note down your observations. Give me a buzz. Let's sit down. Let's review your observations. It's going to be fun. This goes, of course, hand in hand with improvement of their own learning, our last bullet point, which we've already spoken about together. So the power of rubrics is major. You know what else is major, folks? Cookies. Because next session, next week, we're going to sit down with our cookie and we're going to build a rubric. If you've never done this activity before, it's a blast. I wish I could say I authored this activity. I did not. It's been around for a while. Don't peek. I don't want you guys looking at the internet trying to find it. It's going to be so much fun. So next session for next week, I want you to have at least one chocolate chip cookie. I don't care what kind, Chips Ahoy or whatever, Mama's recipe, gluten-free, sugar-free, get a cookie. Okay, and we're going to have a great deal of fun building a rubric during our How series. Special shout out to Keanu Reeves for making an appearance on today's Why session. With these sessions, you just don't know what or who you're going to get, right? So goodness knows I have not done well in practicing session facilitation with a box of cookies in front of me. So just make sure you don't eat the cookie until after next week's session. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your energy, your participation today. I had a great deal of fun with you. I hope you did too. And I will see you next session. Take care. I'll see you then.